Now, I wasn't in Canberra for the budget last night because I was at what might have been an even more important event for this country. It was the launch of the Centre for the Australian Way of Life. This is a new initiative set up by the Institute of Public Affairs. It's headed by former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, and it's aimed at defending and harnessing the values, ideals and institutions that make this country great. There are so many people trying to tear this country down, malign our history and our people, and this new centre will fight back, highlighting the facts, teaching young people that despite any flaws, we are unequalled in our values and successes in this country. The keynote speaker last night was the co-chairman of News Corp, Lachlan Murdoch. He's my boss, of course, but he's also one of the most significant Australians in international business and media. Murdoch used a current, harrowing example to demonstrate the importance of sovereign values.
The people of Ukraine were living in an emerging democracy, embracing their post-Soviet sovereignty, working hard to achieve their economic and political aspirations when Russia decided to snatch that future away from them. Ukrainians also know that their country is not perfect. And yet tonight they continue to fight and to die for their sovereignty, their identity, and their most basic of freedoms.
Yeah, you could not ask for a more graphic or horrific demonstration of why we can never be complacent about freedom or sovereignty, how we always have to fight to protect our core values. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, by the way, will address the Australian Parliament live at this time tomorrow night. We'll bring that to you live during tomorrow's program. Now, in his speech, Lachlan Murdoch talked about our Australian identity and our values and how our country is often run down from within.
But our national identity and culture are weathering constant attempts to recast Australia as something it isn't. To listen to our national broadcaster, or much of the media elite, is to hear about a uniquely racist, selfish, slavish, and monochromatic country. The reality could not be more different. We are one of the most tolerant, generous, independent, and multicultural countries in human history. Not without fault.
Now, we've got to teach children the truth. We've got to eradicate the black armband view of history and counter the pessimistic, apologetic and downright inaccurate picture of this nation that we constantly get from the public broadcasters, much of the media, and too often through our schools too. And Murdoch talked about how the divisive role of identity politics and the rise of cancel culture are real threats to our national values, real threats to our nation.
An Australian way of life is something that by definition must allow us to be Australian. It can't be that our way of life would disallow any of the traits that make up our unique Australian identity. Rather, the unifying characteristics that make us Australian must be allowed to flourish under our way of life. That is why freedom is not only a core value of our way of life, it is essential to it. As Australians, we are free to practice our rugged optimism. We are free to be authentic, free to be egalitarian, and free to aspire to a fair go. We are free to practice our religions and be Christian or Muslim or Hindu. We are free to be gay or straight or trans. We are free to make our own health choices about our own bodies. We are free to travel and to explore. As Australians, we are free to have our own opinions, free to be Labour or Liberal. We are free to be left, and we are free to be right. We are free to disagree. We are free to choose what we read and what we watch. We are free to make our own minds up about things. These freedoms are unifying And such freedom is at the core of who we are. If you need more proof, look no further than our updated national anthem. It's right there in the second line, for we are one and free.
Yeah, this is cut through common sense. Most Australians would agree, but they seldom hear it, so it was a crucial reminder. People like to deride the so-called culture wars, don't they? But if we won't fight for our culture, our character, our freedom and our way of life, what would be worth fighting for? This centre is a great initiative. With Tony Abbott at the helm, it won't shrink from the heat of debate. It's time for mainstream Australians and the truth to fight back.